any amount of fire you can make.
I like that Aang tries to firebend with an open hand here, because he's inexperienced. Most of the time, firebenders bend with punches, at least with direct attacks. But Aang did figure out the little bit he did with open palms before, so it makes sense here that he would try and bend like this again. And don't get me going on this, oh, this makes Sozin bending smoke through his body makes sense. Look, he only bended smoke. Do not. This doesn't help. There's this funny little out-of-tune Fire Nation theme that plays when Zuko fails to firebend. That's pretty funny. We've also seen Zuko take a stance very similar to this when he was squaring up to fight Aang pre-Azula killing him.
Why is this happening?
Maybe it's the altitude.
Yeah, could be.
Okay, so Aang says this, but they're in the wall of a canyon, right? So they'd be lower than you usually would be on ground, if I'm not mistaken. And then they move even further down the canyon. So is this canyon like in a mountain or something? I'm confused.
That one kind of felt hot.
Don't patronize me. You know what it's supposed to look like.
Sorry, Sifu Hotman.
And stop calling me that!
Damn, they stitched two jokes together here really nicely. Half of it is Aang and him thinking Hotman is still something people say 100 years later. And the other half was him calling Toph Sifu and not Katara, and Katara being annoyed about it. So Sokka walks up here with what seems to be a complete apple, totally intact. And then we hear him take one bite. And then we see the apple again, and holy shit! That's the biggest bite out of an apple anyone's ever taken. Jesus, how did he do that?
Hey, jerks. Mind if I watch you two jerks do your jerk bending?
So Sokka comes up here to annoy Aang and Zuko for seemingly no reason. I always kind of got the idea that he came up here to see if they were doing okay considering how new Zuko is to the crew, and he figured he'd see if Zuko was still as touchy as he used to be. So now we fade to this platform that the gang has set up camp on, which is the same platform from last episode when Combustion Man attacked. You can tell because this broken pillar lines up between both episodes. Anyway, here we see that this structure above the fountain is doing totally fine. But last episode, Combustion Man blew it to absolute hell, rock chunks flying and everything. By God, they're using the same pot as last time. Let's fucking go!
I bet it's because I changed sides.
Maybe your firebending comes from rage, and you just don't have enough anger to fuel it the way you used to.
I mean, I don't know. Zuko's still a pretty angry guy, Aang. He's yelled at everyone he's interacted with up until this scene in this episode. I don't know where you're getting this no anger anymore idea from.
You're gonna need to learn to draw your firebending from a different source.
Look how animated Sokka is here, man. In so many other shows, Sokka would just freeze on one still frame while Toph talked. But here, he's emoting all over the place. It's just little stuff like this that makes Avatar feel so alive.
For earthbending, the original benders were badger moles. One day when I was little, I ran away and hid in a cave. That's where I met them.
Toph learning from the Badger Moles is a really cool touch. The blind earthbender learning from the best blind earthbenders is just a super cool idea. Just to base your strongest character in one element around a disability, but it's a disability they share with an animal that knows that certain magic the best. It's just like really smart, man, the way everything folds into itself. Fuck.
That's amazing, Toph. I learned from the monks, but the original airbenders were the
Wait, now in this shot the fountain is super jacked up. Every single leg of the thing above it is broken. Oh well, at least they have it right now.
Well, I know they weren't around when I was a kid.
Even a little throwaway line like this packs a lot behind it. Aang speaks as if his childhood is behind him now, and it makes sense with how much responsibility he's had to take on, compared to this line from the first episode of the series.
I haven't done this since I was a kid. You still are a kid.
Even though these buildings are ancient, there's something eerily familiar about them. I can tell the Fire Sage's temples are somehow descended from these.
Really? The fire temples to me seem to look like old Japanese style buildings like pagodas. But to me, these buildings look more like Olmec or Toltec architecture. Even if they looked more Aztec, I might be able to see where Zuko's coming from with this. But I'm no fucking building doctor, I guess.
Teacher!
I can't believe it. This booby trap must be centuries old, and it still works.
Well, now hold on, Zuko. There is precedent for this. Even if the Sun Warriors weren't still around and probably maintaining their traps, the Fire Nation themselves have tripwires that apparently last for at minimum 6 decades, since Hama said the raids were 60 years ago. I feel like you could just step between the spikes, Zuko. Why does everyone insist on making things way more dangerous than they have to be?
Though, I'm not sure what this tells us about the original source of firebending.
You look pretty angry to me.
I thought the dragons were friends with the Sun Warriors.
Obvious one, but this carving illustrates the successful carrying out of the ritual Aang and Zuko complete at the end of this episode. You can even see the Sun Warrior in the middle with the 2 pieces of the eternal fire he was given to hold.
My great-grandfather Sozin happened. He started the tradition of hunting dragons for glory.
Damn, that's cold, Sozin. You had a dragon companion yourself. You think Sozin offed his own pet eventually?
The last great dragon was conquered long before I was born. By my uncle.
It's interesting that Iroh went to see Ran and Shaw before Zuko was even born, meaning that Iroh was still all about the Fire Nation war effort at that point, seeing as he was still Crown Prince and an acting general when Zuko was around 10. We'll get back to that.
up!
I hate to say it, Aang, but couldn't you just blast a hole in the wall? And then even if you didn't want to pull out the mechanist, couldn't you just dig under the door and fill it back up lickety-split? Doors should almost never be a problem for you anymore.
You know, Zuko, I don't care what everyone else says about you. You're pretty smart.
Zuko only took one sword out to redirect the light in the shots prior to this, but in this shot he puts both swords back into his sheath.
I think this is some kind of Sun Warrior firebending form.
This better teach us some really good firebending.
Look, look, they did a Dragon Ball.
It's some kind of mystical gemstone.
Well, don't touch it!
Has Aang seen Indiana Jones? I'm just saying, I don't think I'd know about pressure plate traps if it weren't for that movie when I was 12, or maybe even now.
I'm just very suspicious of giant glowing gems sitting on pedestals.
Glowing?
It feels almost alive.
So we're supposed to assume this is the dragon egg, right? Maybe in some sort of gold casing? That's pretty neat, I would say.
I can't pull free. It's like some kind of glue.
This is a fucking horrifying death to anyone in the room that didn't get flung up here and turned around or isn't an airbender. Could you imagine drowning in glue? Jesus. Oh, and there goes the staff. Damn, he was doing so good with the new one too.
Who's down there?
Where's this camera angle coming from? Isn't the glue substance completely up to the grating?
Who's down there?
Also, this is one of my favorite lines in the whole show. I don't know why. I just love how it's delivered. Here, let me try. Who's down there? Anteater sloth? Anteater bear?
For trying to take our sunstone, you must be severely punished.
So wait, which thing is the sunstone? Zuko described the gem that opened the door as the sunstone, but the chief here speaks as if the egg that was on the pedestal was the sunstone. So which is it?
Please, I don't normally play this card, but I'm the Avatar.
I could make a comprehensive list of every time Aang does in fact play this card. It's not all the time, but it is sometimes.
I know my people have distorted the ways of firebending to be fueled by anger and rage. But now I want to learn the true way.
Ah!
You must maintain a constant heat. The flame will go out if you make it too small. Make it too big, and you might lose control.
I really love that the Sun Warrior's philosophy is the exact opposite of Zhongzheng's. Zhongzheng was so disenchanted with the art of firebending because he was surrounded by the misuse of it for his entire life. So much so that he even refers to it as savagery more than once. So it's really cool that these people who are all decked out in tribal clothing, that a closed-minded person could describe as savages upon a cursory glance, are the ones that do it right and healthily. Zhongzheng had become so disillusioned with firebending because of the horrors he'd seen committed with it, so he chose to preach a form of firebending that was centered on restraint. He has this quote that actually sort of borders on Sun Warrior philosophy.
Feel the heat of the sun. It is the greatest source of fire, yet it is in complete balance with nature.
But clearly the rest of his outlook has been permanently scarred by what he's seen. It's just so cool that masters of each element can have differing views from even each other due to their own unique experiences and mindsets. Sort of like Iroh and Guru Patik disagreeing on Aang giving up his loved ones. This looks really weird for Avatar. I know it's far in the background, but this doesn't look like most Avatar backgrounds or distant shots. This almost looks like it was a painting or something.
Have you forgotten that you vanished, allowing the Fire Nation to wreak havoc on the world?
The decline of the dragons is your burden too.
Oh man, that's some shit. He already feels bad enough about running away. Now you're gonna put the extinction of an animal on him too?
What if they judge us and attack us?
Well, we're the Fire Prince and the Avatar. I think we could take these guys in a fight, whoever they are.
Yeah, exactly. Zuko's on the same kind of shit I am. Who cares about being in trouble with a little old lady? Or who cares about two pretty good firebenders being mad at you? You're both hard as fuck. You can do whatever you want.
Chanters!
Okay, so there's this weird question in this moment. Is this super cool because it turns out the ending theme to every episode has been this ancient Sun Warrior drum beat? Or is it lame as hell that they're reusing the ending theme to be this song? It's all a matter of how you look at it, I guess. I've gone back and forth on how I feel about it. I've always kind of been disappointed that the drumming doesn't match up with the music at all, though. For how incredible this scene is, you'd think they'd want to nail absolutely everything down, but they didn't get that. It almost makes me think that there was originally a different song because of it.
Sound the call!
If you were in this situation, you would have put together that these two aren't just some nutso firebending guys, right? There's a whole song, ladies are bowing, a giant horn calls them. I'm just saying, there's some context clues that go very missed here. So it seems like Ran and Shaw are a different species of dragon when compared to Roku's dragon. Not only is their facial structure different, but they're like way bigger too. So in this one singular shot, the sun is over the Sun Warrior city in the background. But for the rest of the scene, it's out over the ocean.
Zuko, I think we're supposed to do the dragon dance with them.
It's really cool that the original form of firebending was actually much akin to a dance, which only drives home more that the Fire Nation is doing it wrong since dancing is all but forbidden. Yeah, I bet you didn't think there'd be any headband shit coming back, but I found a way. This is just visually stunning, man. Some of my favorite shots in Avatar. Aang and Zuko mirroring the dragon's dance is just moving. I'm gonna talk a lot more about it in the wrap up to the episode. It's quick, but in this shot the camera actually shakes a little bit. I think that's there so you can actually kind of feel the weight of these huge animals as they flap their wings, and I think that's a super cool technique to pull that off.
Judgment time.
So I bet you're wondering how I got myself into this one. This is so unfortunate that I need to steal this incredible moment from you. But it turns out that Zuko's scar is on the wrong side in this shot. But it's not just that. The entire shot is actually flipped. Zuko's scar is on the wrong side, yes, but Aang's clothes usually go over his left shoulder, but not in this shot, they go over his right. It's a real shame that they got that mixed up in this series of shots of what is otherwise a visual triumph. And just like, wow, if this scene wasn't already beautiful enough in the first place, they hit us with this? I can't sing these few minutes praises enough.
My uncle Iroh said he faced the last dragon and killed it.
Yeah, so okay, Iroh went on this whole enlightening journey before Zuko was born, if what Zuko said earlier is to be believed. So Iroh went and learned the secret of firebending, but then went right on back to being a general of the Fire Lord's army for another decade? Or probably more from the way Zuko chose to word it. He said it was before Zuko was even born that he killed the last dragon. Huh. I feel like a lot of people figured this was a big part of what made Iroh the way he is in present day, and it probably is, but people probably think Iroh met the dragons after Liu Ten's death, which pushed him to be the way he is. But according to this episode, that's not the case.
Yeah, it's like the sun, but inside of you. Do you guys realize this?
No, we have no choice but to imprison you here forever. Just kidding.
I really like that the Sun Chief loosens up a lot once these two pass the test. I don't know why, I just like this guy.
But seriously, don't tell anyone.
Oh, I'm really glad they're not going to tell anyone about the dragons.
With this technique the dragon showed us,
Ah!
We'll just tap dance our way to victory over the Fire Lord. It's a sacred form that happens to be thousands of years old.
Oh yeah? What's your little form called?
Forget you, Katara. I'll dance like a dragon over your fucking grave if you keep it up with this lip. This is my favorite episode. And you know what? I'm not entirely sure why. It's just whenever someone asks me what's your favorite episode, this is the one that comes to mind first. I think it's all in the ending. The imagery of the dragon's dance is just something that really resonates with me for some reason. The rest is cool and all, the world building and the lore and the culture of the Sun Warriors, but man, the dragon dance, right? It's just so incredible to look at. Our two main characters move in synchronicity with these two ancient, beautiful animals. And it all comes to a head with this wonderful display of light that the viewer isn't even sure if they understand the way the characters did. There's just a special something in there that I don't think is captured in any other scene in the show. This feeling of connectedness to oneself and an art form, and being in the right place in the right time, and being worthy and knowing what you have to do. It's just everything comes together in that one scene, and I think that's what makes this my favorite episode. Patron shoutouts. If you want to be 2 episodes ahead of the YouTube releases, you can support me on Patreon for just a few bucks. Link, as always, is in the description below the video. Biggest shoutouts of all go to my top patrons: Bird, who survived a lightning strike by blocking it with what ended up being a winning lottery ticket; Buddha Jacker, who's the real thing they're hiding in Area 51; Charlie Rock Quigley, who was an Aztec war god in his past life; Danger Stranger, who bowled a 310-point game somehow; Daniel Ward, who was actually a merman in disguise. You can tell because of the gills and the fish eyes; Emperor Tromedlov Dromai, who won a spelling contest against Google autocorrect; Eric Barney, who can do actual magic, but he can only pull rabbits out of hats, that's the only thing; etc., who's so jacked and vascular his chest looks like a topographical map of Arizona; Finished Blood, who broke out of Alcatraz with only a paperclip in his wits; Fritz Sullivan, who threw a party that was so rad the cops showed up and they just joined in; Harrison Poland, who is currently possessed by a demon, but he's too spiritually strong to even notice; Jared Berkman, who showed up to the red carpet in pajama pants and still won Best Dressed; John, who can jump up and touch any ceiling, no matter how high; Misha Boblov, who can turn gold into lead, but not the other way around; Nopetron, who slayed the one actual dragon that ever existed. Shame we couldn't get that species off the ground; Pran of Prem, whose hallucinations become real life, so things get pretty dicey around them at a party; Sean Martin, who only measures things in weird nautical ways like leagues or fathoms; Soup Cube, who jumped over 9 helicopters while they were on a razor scooter; The Sinking Bubble, who can pump gas at twice the speed of your average bear; The Ultimate Ed, who is twice the bear of your average bear; and You Frickin' Nerd, who was in a never-ending battle with a human-sized lobster. Every beach trip, it's the same damn thing. And of course, more huge shoutouts go to my other fuck you money patrons: Agent Rhino, Brendan Murphy, Donnie Snow, Dylan Calvo, Dylan Roche, Jerry Craft, Caitlin, Kennedy Stapleton, Leif Arnhammer, Luke Herrera, Mandatory Sin, Matt Max Lewandowski, Nick Kaipainen, Omega Fighter, RCNFL, Skylos, Tiago Nascimento, Varunda, and Zoompi. And my god, overanalyzers, Alex Fritz, Ali QPZM, Andrew Watchford, Austin Gallup, Be My Valentine, Big Thirsty, Brand Muffin, Cameron O'Solo, Kanon Corpse, Charles Barnett, Chase Brignac, Chris Dolmuth, Dan Bertel, Daniel Nordzig, David Carlisle, Derek Cornwell, DJ Jax, Do Mutual Aid, Dominic Saint, Distant, Earth 2 John, Eleanor Rose, Eric Ross, Garrett Kane, Gub Gub, Homie 1 Kenobi, Isaiah Wilson, It's Carton, Jacob Freese, Jake the Garden Rake, James Hanlon, Jay Lambo, Jeremy Rubenstein, Jimbo, John Ajaka, Jot Moreland, Joshua Bone, Joshua Haskett, Juice Pouch Grape, Justin Scott, K-Dax, Keon Gilliland, Lady Serena, Lehman Russ, Literal NASA Rocket Scientist, Matthew Stargell, Mr. Airborne, Mitchell Gobrecht, Mortius 007, Nickel Pickle 582, Nicholas Abbott, Omar, Papa Jaka, Parker Back to the Basics Gas, Peyton Mims, Peter Bayron, Radiator Rat, Rocket Mist, Shadow Fox Nero, Sky Not Darkened, Spory, Steinwan, Super Snipper, Timothy Guchensky, Tiny Knight, Travis Chestnut, Triajuice, Wilbur Steady Paycheck Mode, and Wolfman Dan. Next up is the Boiling Rock, and now I have to think of something to say about That's Rough Buddy that hasn't been said yet.